Well, welcome to IT216 Digital Forensics. This semester we'll be using the 5th edition of the textbook and the 5th edition of the lab manual. And just so you know, I'll warn you ahead of time, some of the lecture videos that I've recorded with the 4th edition I'm reusing for the 5th edition simply because the content hasn't changed at all. What has changed is the author moved some things from one chapter to another chapter. So what might have been in chapter 2 in one edition is in chapter 3 in the other edition. So the only thing that you will notice is the chapter number has changed, but the rest of the content hasn't. I am re-recording chapter 1, and I'm re-recording one other chapter because those have changed, so I will make those changes. So anyway, let's get going. Chapter 1 does introduce you to digital forensics. It explains computer investigations. There we go. You'll learn how to prepare computer investigations. Next, you'll apply systematic approaches to an investigation. The chapter also describes procedures for corporate high-tech investigations. It explains the requirements for data recovery workstations and software, and you'll also learn to conduct an investigation. Finally, you'll learn how to complete and critique a case. So, as most textbooks with chapter 1, this is sort of a light overview of the rest of the book, and the other chapters go into different topics more deeply. Also, it introduces some terminology that we need to use. So, anyway, digital forensics involves obtaining and analyzing digital information for use as evidence in civil, criminal, and administrative cases. The International Organization for Standardization, or ISO, standard for digital forensics was ratified in October 2012, and that's ISO 27037. Okay. The FBI Computer Analysis and Response Team was formed in 1984 to handle the increasing number of cases involving digital evidence. The Fourth Amendment to the U.S. Constitution protects everyone's right to be secure in their person, their residence, and property from search and seizure. Now, it's very important to realize that when you're dealing with digital forensics investigations, especially in the public sector, you may be dealing with criminal investigations. And so you have to follow a lot of the same rules as police do when they do search and seizure. Okay? So if you don't follow correct procedures, your case can be thrown out. Okay? And this protects us as individuals. So it's a good thing, but we have to make sure that we do our jobs correctly. Digital forensics investigates data that can be retrieved from a computer's hard disk or other storage media. Network forensics yields information of how a perpetrator or an attacker gained access to the network. Data recovery involves retrieving information from a computer that was deleted by mistake or lost during a power surge or server crash. Typically, you know what you're looking for. Digital forensics is the task of recovering data that users have hidden or deleted and using it as evidence. The evidence can be incriminating or exculpatory. Disaster recovery uses computer forensics techniques to retrieve information their clients have lost. Investigators often work as a team to make computers and networks secure in an organization. And here on this slide, in this figure, we have the teams working together in what's called the investigations triad. Here, the vulnerability, threat assessment, and risk management group, the network intrusion detection and incident response group, and the digital investigations group. Altogether, they represent the investigations triad. In smaller companies, one group might perform all the tasks in the investigations triad. When you work in the vulnerability assessment and risk management group, you test and verify the integrity of standalone workstations and network servers. Professionals in this group have skills in network intrusion and detection and incident response. Network intrusion detection and incident response group detects intruder attacks by using automated tools and monitoring firewall logs. Digital investigations group is a team that manages investigations and conducts forensics analysis of systems suspected of containing evidence related to an incident or a crime. Now, a little history of digital forensics. By the 1970s, electronic crimes were increasing, especially in the financial sector. Most law enforcement officers at that time did not know enough about computers to ask the right questions or preserve evidence for trial. In the early 1980s, PCs gained popularity and different operating systems emerged. Disk operating system, DOS, was available in many varieties, MS-DOS, PC-DOS, and there were other PC operating systems. Forensics tools were simple, but most were generated by government agencies at that time. Okay. In the mid-1980s, Xtree Gold appeared on the market and recognized file types and retrieved lost or deleted files. Norton Disk Edit soon followed and became the best tool for finding deleted files. In 1987, Apple introduced the Mac SE, which is a Macintosh with an external hard disk with 60 gigs of storage. They called it the Easy Drive. By the early 1980s, oh, here's some more slides. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, before I go on, I already talked about this. The different groups in the investigation triad. Okay. By the 1990s, specialized tools for computer forensics were available. The International Association of Computer Investigative Specialists introduced training for software for forensic investigations, and the IRS created search warrant programs. Expert Witness, created by ASR Data for the Macintosh, was the first commercial GUI-based software for computer forensics. Expert Witness could recover deleted files and fragments of deleted files. The inclusion of large hard disks posed new problems for investigators. Other software that was developed for computer forensics include iLook and Access Data Forensic Toolkit. Now, case law. Since technology is evolving at an exponential rate, existing laws and statutes just can't keep up with the rate of change. When statutes or regulations don't exist, case law is used. Case law allows legal counsel to use previous cases similar to the current one because the laws don't yet exist. Each new case is evaluated on its own merit and issues. You must be familiar with one or more with more than one computing platform, such as DOS, Windows 95, 98, that line of computers, Linux operating systems, Macintosh, and the current Windows platforms. And you should join as many computer user groups as you can. Not everybody can be an expert in every area, usually. The Computer Technology Investigators Network, CTIN, meets to discuss problems with digital forensics examiners and the problems they encounter. The High Technology Crime Investigation Association, HTCIA, the International Information System Security Certification Consortium, the ISC squared, and the InfraGard have local chapters open to professionals in most major cities. I know St. Louis does have an InfraGard chapter here in St. Louis. InfraGard is a joint collaboration between public and private sector organizations and the FBI. And you have to go through a background check and pass a background check to become a member and enjoy the benefits, such as the notifications when threats are discovered. So what you want to do is make sure that you don't get yourself in trouble with the police. When I joined InfraGard, I had to go through and submit to a background check, and it wasn't painful or anything. It was just happened, and I was notified that I was accepted, and that was it. So, user groups can be especially helpful when you need information about obscure operating systems. It is recommended that you build a network of computer forensics experts and other professionals and keep in touch through email. Outside experts can provide detailed information you need to retrieve digital evidence. Okay, in preparing for digital investigations, you realize that digital investigations do fall into two distinct categories: public sector investigations and private sector investigations. Public sector investigations involve government agencies responsible for criminal investigations and prosecution. These organizations must observe legal guidelines. For example, the law of search and seizure protects the rights of all people, including people suspected of crimes. Because remember, you're presumed innocent until proven guilty. Private or corporate investigations deal with private companies, non-law enforcement government agencies, and lawyers. Private investigations aren't governed directly by criminal law or the Fourth Amendment issues. They are governed by internal policies that define expected employee behavior and conduct in the workplace. Private corporate investigations also involve litigation disputes. Investigations are usually conducted in civil cases. In a criminal case, a suspect is tried for a criminal offense such as burglary, murder, molestation, or fraud. Computers and networks are tools that can be used to commit crimes. In many states, states have added specific language to criminal codes to define crimes involving computers. It's very important to follow legal processes. Legal processes depend on local custom, legislative standards, and rules of evidence. Criminal cases follow three stages: the complaint, the investigation, and the prosecution. A criminal case begins when somebody finds evidence of an illegal act. The complainant makes the allegation, an accusation, or supposition of fact. Next, a police officer interviews the complainant and writes a report about the crime. The police blotter provides a record of clues to crimes that have been committed previously. Blotters are now generally electronic files. An investigator delegates, collects, and processes the information related to the complaint. Okay. Now, two more roles here: the digital evidence first responder and digital evidence specialist. The digital evidence first responder arrives on an incident scene, assesses the situation, and takes precautions to acquire and preserve evidence. The digital evidence specialist has the skill to analyze the data and determine when another specialist should be called in to assist. An affidavit is a sworn statement of support of facts about evidence or a crime. You must include exhibits that support the allegation. Okay. Now, an affidavit, like I said, sworn statement of facts or about or evidence of a crime submitted to a judge to request a search warrant. Okay. The affidavit must be notarized and under oath, under sworn oath. The judge then approves the search warrant before you can begin to use it to collect evidence. Okay, private sector investigations involve private companies and lawyers who address company policy violations and litigation disputes. Now, corporate computer crimes can include email harassment, falsification of data, gender and age discrimination, embezzlement, sabotage, and industrial espionage. One way to avoid litigation is to publish and maintain policies that employees find easy to read and follow. Published company policies provide a line of authority for businesses to conduct internal investigations. Well-defined policies give computer investigators and forensic examiners the authority to conduct an investigation. Another way to avoid litigations is to display warning banners. A warning banner usually appears when the computer starts or connects to company intranet network or virtual private network. It informs end users that the organization reserves the right to inspect computer systems and network traffic at will. A warning banner establishes the right to conduct the investigation. Authorized requester has the power to conduct investigations, and this policy should be defined by executive management. Groups that should have direct authority to request computer investigations include corporate security investigations, corporate ethics office, corporate equal employment opportunity office, internal auditing, the general counsel, or legal department. The most common type of situations that require security investigations in a corporate environment include abuse or misuse of corporate assets, email abuse, or internet abuse. You should be sure to distinguish between a company's abuse problems and potential criminal problems. Now, it's true that in the process of doing a private investigation of some sort of policy abuse or computer usage abuse, it may lead to a criminal investigation. Many company policies distinguish between personal and company-owned computer property. One area that's difficult to distinguish involves cell phones, smartphones, personal notebooks, and tablet computers. Some companies state that if you connect a personal device to the business network, it falls under the same rules as company property. Professional conduct. Your professional conduct as a digital investigation and forensics analyst is critical because it determines your credibility. It includes ethics, morals, and standards of behavior. Maintaining objectivity means you must form and sustain unbiased opinions of your cases. Maintain an investigation's credibility by keeping the case confidential. In the corporate environment, confidentiality is critical. In rare instances, your corporate case might become a criminal case as serious as murder. You can enhance your professional conduct by continuing your training, attending workshops, conferences, and vendor courses. Also, membership in professional organizations adds to your credentials. You are expected to achieve a high public and private standing and maintain honesty and integrity. Preparing a digital forensics investigation. Okay. The role of a digital forensics professional is to gather evidence to prove that a suspect committed a crime or violated a company policy. In such a case that it can be offered in a court or at corporate inquiry. Okay, it involves investigating the suspect's computer and preserving evidence on a different computer. Okay. The chain of custody is the route of evidence takes from the time you find it until the case is closed or goes to court. And you have to document the chain of custody. Information contained on a computer can help solve a case. I want to refer you to the U.S. Department of Justice website, www.usdoj.gov, for proper documentation on acquisition of digital evidence. And it's very important to use tools like Technology Pathways ProDiscover for a digital forensics investigator, especially when dealing with intact, deleted, and hidden files. Overview of company policy violation. When employees misuse resources, not following company policies, it can cost millions of dollars. Misuse includes surfing the internet, sending personal emails, and using computers for personal tasks during work hours. You want to take a systematic approach. Okay. Each step in problem solving, including make an initial assessment about the type of case you're investigating, determine a preliminary design or approach that you're going to use for the case, create a detailed checklist, determine the resources you need, obtain a copy obtain and copy an evidence disk drive. Identify the risk, mitigate or minimize the risk, test the design, analyze and recover digital evidence, investigate the data you recover, complete the case report, and critique the case. The amount of time and effort for each step does vary depending on the case you investigate. When assessing a case, you first need to outline a case before determining the case requirements. Okay, a list of case details would include the situation, the nature of the case, specifics of the case, type of evidence, known disk format, and the location of the evidence. In planning your investigation, the basic steps when planning an investigation include acquire the evidence, complete an evidence form and establish the chain of custody, transport the evidence to a computer forensics lab, secure evidence in an approved secure container, prepare a forensics workstation, retrieve the evidence from the secure container, make a forensics copy, return the evidence to the container, and process the forensics copy with the appropriate tools. A broken chain of custody can throw out your case. Therefore, documenting evidence is very important during a forensics analysis. Now, when you're using evidence custody forms, they're usually single evidence or multi-evidence forms, and the fields usually include the case number, the investigating organization, the investigator, the nature of the case, the location evidence was obtained, description of the evidence, the vendor name, model number or serial number, evidence recovered by, date and time, evidence placed in locker, evidence number, evidence processed by or disposition of evidence, date and time, and the page. Securing your evidence. Some considerations to follow when handling computer evidence. Static electricity, padding to prevent damage during transportation, sealing openings with evidence tape, writing initials on tape to prevent evidence from being altered, temperature and humidity ranges. Procedures for private sector high-tech investigations. Oh, I'm a little behind on my slides. Okay, here we're talking about how to develop formal procedures and informal checklists to cover all issues important to high-tech investigations. In employee termination cases, the majority of investigative work for termination cases involves employee abuse of corporate assets. Internet abuse investigations. You need to conduct an internet abuse investigation. You need to include the organization's internet proxy server logs, the suspect computer's IP address, the suspect computer's disk drive, your preferred digital forensics analysis tool. The steps to perform an internet abuse investigation include using the standard investigative analysis techniques and procedures, use appropriate tools to extract all web page URL information, contact the network firewall administrator, request proxy server log, compare the data recovered from forensics analysis to the proxy server log, and continue analyzing the computer disk drive data. In an email abuse investigation, you need an electronic copy of the offending email that contained the message header data. If available, email server log records. For email systems that store users' messages on a central server, access to that server. Access to the computer so that you can perform a forensics analysis on it, and your digital forensics analysis tool. The steps to perform an email abuse investigation include using your standard analysis, forensics analysis techniques and procedures, obtain an electronic copy of the suspect and victim's email folder or data. For web-based email investigations, use tools such as FTK Internet Keyword Search option to extract all related email address information and examine header data of all messages of interest to the investigation. Attorney-client privilege investigations. Attorney-client privilege rules for an attorney, under those, you must keep the findings confidential. Many attorneys want printouts of the data you have recovered. You need to persuade and educate many attorneys on how digital evidence can be viewed electronically. You can also encounter problems if you find data as binary files. The steps for conducting an attorney-client privilege investigation include: request a memorandum from the attorney directing you to start the investigation. Request a list of keywords of interest to the investigation. Initiate the investigation and analysis. For disk drive investigations, make 2 bitstream images using different tools. Verify hash signatures on all files on the original and recreated disks. Methodically examine every portion of the disk drive and extract all data. Run keyword searches on allocated and unallocated disk space. For Windows operating systems, use a variety of tools to analyze and extract data from the registry. For binary data, such as CAD drawings, locate the correct software product. For unallocated disk recovery, use a tool that removes or replaces non-printable data and consolidate all recovered data from evidence bitstream image into well-organized folders and subfolders. Other guidelines for conducting attorney-client privilege investigations include minimize all written communications with the attorney. Any documentation written to the attorney must contain a header stating that it's privileged legal communication, confidential work product. Assist the attorney and paralegal in analyzing the data. If you have difficulty complying with the directions, contact the attorney and explain the problem. Always keep an open line of verbal communication. And if you're communicating via email, use encryption. Industrial espionage investigations should be treated as criminal investigations. The staff needed for an industrial espionage investigation include a computing investigator who's responsible for disk forensic examinations, technology specialist who is knowledgeable of the suspected compromised technical data, a network specialist who can perform log analysis and set up network sniffers, and threat assessment specialist, typically an attorney. Some of the guidelines for industrial espionage investigations include determining whether the investigation involves a possible industrial espionage incident, consult with corporate attorneys and upper management, determine what information is needed to substantiate the investigation, generate a list of keywords for disk forensics and sniffer monitoring, list and collect resources needed for the investigation, determine the goal and scope of the investigation, and initiate the investigation after approval from management. Some of the planning considerations for industrial espionage investigation include examine all email of suspected employees, search internet news groups or message boards, initiate physical surveillance, examine all facility physical access logs for sensitive areas, determine suspect location in relation to the vulnerable asset, study the suspect's work habits, and collect incoming and outgoing phone logs. Some of the basic steps to perform industrial espionage investigations include gather all personnel assigned to the investigation and brief them on the plan, gather the resources needed to conduct the investigation, start the investigation by placing surveillance systems, discreetly gather any additional evidence, collect all log data from networks and email servers, report regularly to management and corporate attorneys, review the investigation scope with management and corporate attorneys. Interviews and interrogations in high-tech investigations. Becoming a skilled interviewer and interrogator, can take many years of experience. An interview is usually conducted to collect information from a witness or suspect about specific facts related to an investigation. Interrogation is the process of trying to get a suspect to confess to a specific incident or crime. Your role as a computing investigator is to instruct the investigator who's conducting the interview on what questions to ask and what answers should be. The ingredients for a successful interview or interrogation include being patient throughout the session, repeating or rephrasing questions to zero in on specific facts from a reluctant witness or suspect, and being tenacious. understanding data recovery workstations and software. In data recovery, the customer or your company just wants the data back. In computer forensics workstation is a specially configured PC loaded with additional bays, connectors, forensic software, and to avoid altering the evidence, the original evidence, you use write-blocking devices, enable you to boot Windows without writing data to the evidence drive. Okay, so the basic requirements include a workstation running Windows XP or newer operating system, a write blocker device, digital forensics acquisition tool, a digital forensics analysis tool, a target drive to receive the source or suspect disk data, spare PATA or SATA ports depending on your interfaces, and USB ports. Additional useful items might include network interface cards, extra USB ports, FireWire ports, SCSI cards, disk editor tool, text editor tools, graphics viewer programs, and other specialized viewing tools. Conducting the investigation. You should start by gathering the resources you identified in your investigation plan. The items needed for this phase include the original storage media, evidence custody form, evidence container for storage media, bitstream imaging tool, forensics workstation to copy and examine your evidence, and securable evidence locker, cabinet, or safe. Gathering the evidence. You should avoid damaging the evidence. Okay. The steps might include meet with the IT manager to interview them, fill out the evidence form, have the IT manager sign it, place the evidence in a secure container, complete the evidence custody form, carry the evidence to the computer forensics lab, create forensics copies if possible, and secure evidence by locking the container. As far as bitstream copies. Okay. A bitstream copy is a bit-by-bit copy of the original storage medium, an exact copy of the original disk, different from a simple backup copy. Backup software only copies known files. Backup software cannot copy deleted files, email messages, or recover file fragments. Bitstream images. A bitstream image is a file containing the bitstream copy of all data on a disk or partition, also known as an image or image file. The target disk must match the original disk. Okay, so the disk manufacturer size and model, if possible. The first rule of digital forensics is to preserve the original evidence. Conduct your analysis only on a copy of the data. Okay, this section talks about using ProDiscover Basic to acquire evidence from a USB drive. First of all, you create a folder for data storage, and you perform an acquisition on a USB drive. On the USB drive, locate the Write Protect switch and place the drive in Write Protect mode so nothing changes on it. Start ProDiscover Basic. In the main menu, click Action, capture image from the menu, click the source drive, drop-down list, and select the thumb drive. Now this, as far as memorizing this part, you really get it when you do it, more than when I'm talking about it. So we're going to do an exercise like that. Here's some of the screens. Next, you click the the double right arrow button next to the destination text box. Type your name in the technician name text box. ProDiscover Basic then acquires an image of the thumb drive. You click OK in the completion text box. Now your job is to analyze it. Your job is to recover data from the deleted files, the file fragments, the completed files. Deleted files linger on the disk until new data is saved to the same physical location, and tools like ProDiscover Basic can be used to recover deleted files. To analyze the USB drive, you start ProDiscover Basic, create a new case, type the project number, add an image file, okay, and then display the contents of the required file. You click Expand Content View, click All Files under the image file name path, click Letter 1 to view its contents in the data area. In the data area, view contents of Letter 1, analyze the data, search for information related to the complaint, and data analysis is the most time-consuming task. And here's a screenshot of doing so with ProDiscover Basic. Okay, so with ProDiscover Basic, you can search for keywords of interest in the case, display the results in a search results window in the work area, click each file in the search results window and examine the contents of the data area, export the data to a folder of your choice, search for specific file names, and generate a report of your activities. Now, completing the case. You need to produce a final report which states what you did, how you did it, what you found. Include the ProDiscover report to document your work. You have to be able to create repeatable findings. Repeat the steps and produce the same result. If you can't produce the same result, it can't be used as evidence in a court. If required, use a report template. The report should show conclusive evidence suspect did or did not commit a crime or violate a company policy. So you keep a written journal of everything you do. Your notes can be used in court. Answer the 6 W's: who, what, when, where, why, and how. You must explain computer and network processes. Remember, if repeating the process described in the report, you can't achieve the same result, your work has no value as evidence. This characteristic is known as repeatable findings. The final report should be prepared according to the expected readers. Critiquing the case. Okay, here you're making a self-evaluation of your work by answering the following questions. How could you improve your performance in the case? Did you expect the results that you found? Did the case develop in ways you did not expect? Was the documentation as thorough as it could have been? What feedback has been received from the requesting source? Did you discover any new problems? If so, what are they? And did you use new techniques during the case or during research? And we're finished with this chapter.